Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Allen from the Biomimicry Institute, and I send greetings from my colleagues in Montana who are all jealous that I got to come to Stockholm 2 years in a row. I had the privilege of being here last year as well when the first of this type of forums was held at the Nobel Dynamite Museum. And I thought it was fantastic, and I'm really eager to come back and spend this afternoon with you and hear about what's going on as this network, exciting network around biomimicry is forming in Sweden. I'd like to also thank the hosts for having us here today, Denise and I, to talk with you about what we're doing and share some of our ideas and hopefully find some ways to collaborate with you as we're all growing this exciting field of biomimicry. What I'm going to do quickly is complement some of the information that Denise gave you by talking about the Biomimicry Institute and the Biomimicry Guild, two kind of sister organizations that are working together in this field, and talk about how we work, and then point out two large-scale projects that we're working on now that we think are really going to accelerate some of the thinking around this field and also provide some opportunities for collaboration with you. So first, let's start with the Biomimicry Guild. The Biomimicry Guild is a consulting company started by Janine Binyas in around 1998, 1999. The book that Denise mentioned came out about that time, and she got a tremendous number of requests for speaking, which then led to a consulting business that formed around companies asking her to come in and work with R&D departments and work on innovation within the company. And as Ulf mentioned, teaching companies or helping companies think outside of the box using biomimicry principles. The company now has a range of services, including ideation, which is kind of a brainstorming type of service. We do research and development support and biological research. And we're working with some relatively large clients now, like Kohler and Nike and HOK and some other large clients that are really looking to biomimicry as an innovation driver in their company. As I mentioned, this was the book that Janine wrote in 1997. And I bring this up just to show that the tremendous momentum that has been gained since that book came out in 1997. Let me just point to this. This is our new annual report that's coming out this year. And when we started putting this together, we started looking at the media that has talked to Janine or talked to our staff over the years as this field has been growing, and we pulled this together. And if you look at this little trail here, we've had media coverage and interest in biomimicry in a range of really interesting media outlets, from CNN to National Geographic to The Economist, Nature, exploring these ideas of biomimicry and what the implications are for business in the future. And just this last year, a huge honor for Janine Binyas. She was awarded the Champion of the Earth Award from the United Nations Environment Program, as you can see there in the middle. But this does point out to us that these ideas are really starting to catch on. They're starting to approach the mainstream, and that's a really exciting time for us. And it's been a very short amount of time if you consider from 1997 to where we are now with these ideas. And this is a quote that just came out this year from Harvard Publishing that I think also points to the fact of the power of biomimicry in capturing people's imaginations in the business world. This is Andrew Winston from Harvard Business Publishing, and he says that I believe that biomimicry is one of a small handful of very important ideas that will change the way business is done, and it seems to be catching on. We agree with that. And then this is also a very compelling and provocative statement that we're starting to use internally as a staff to describe biomimicry and where we think this movement can go. This is Peter Head, who's one of the directors at Arup, one of the largest global engineering firms. I'm sure many of you here have heard of that. 10,000 employees. They do a lot of really large-scale projects. They're starting to incorporate biomimicry into their internal R&D and into their strategies. And Peter said in a CNN.com technology interview recently, or in 2008, that their company is using biomimicry principles in a lot of their work to look at what is essentially a transition from an industrial model to an ecological model of civilization. And I think that's what we're talking about here. How do we look to nature and the wisdom of nature in 3.85 billion years of R&D to give us the information that we need to move from our industrial production system to a much more ecological and sustainable production model for the world? So let's point to, or talk to just briefly about two of these large-scale projects that kind of show how we're attempting to use biomimicry and introduce it in the world. The two that I'll talk about in one a little bit in depth are the Lavasa project in India that we're working with HOK. I'm sure many of you have heard of HOK, one of the largest architecture firms in the world. I'll just point that out. I really don't have time to go into it much other than to say that it's a very large master plan community in India that's being built from the ground up. It's about a 25,000 acre project. It's going to be built over decades of time, and they're using biomimicry as part of their urban planning and master planning principles for the city. So it's a very exciting laboratory for us and for HOK, who is saying that biomimicry is going to help them reimagine and reinvent what architecture is in the 21st century. A lot of that thinking is going to be done at Lavasa, and I encourage you just to go online and use keywords Lavasa and biomimicry in Google, and you can read a lot of articles about what's going on there now and in the future as that project matures. But I'd like to talk just a little bit in depth about Ask Nature. It's been mentioned a couple of times here. This is one of our new flagship projects. AskNature.org, I encourage you to go there and look at it, is the online inspiration community for the biomimicry movement, or that's what we'd like it to be. Funded by Autodesk, the large CAD manufacturer. We're using this to achieve two different things in the biomimicry world. One is to create a neural network among people in a community using social networking tools to connect people that want to share and collaborate around these ideas. And then also we want to create the online encyclopedia of biomimicry, and I'll go into just a little bit of depth of what that looks like.